Hi, I'm Richard Perry, known as the Car Guy, and I wrote a book called How to Buy a Car Without Being Taken for a Ride. And as we talked about this before, I found out how little people really know about buying vehicles, and I wanted to share that with everybody. So that's why we started this podcast. I'm excited about our first guest, very excited for a couple of reasons. One is I don't have to do this alone. But second thing is that this is a very close personal friend of mine that I've known for many years, but she's very qualified in what she knows. I met Cindy Lemke, our first guest, which is very exciting being our first guest of the show. Cindy Lemke, she was the marketing manager for the Saboba Casino many years ago, and that's why I met her when we used to do programs of giving cars away when we had during the bingo things like that back then. That was a blast doing that. And then after that, she was the executive director for the Hemet San Jacinto Valley Chamber of Commerce, and did a great job. And I think the best executive director we've ever had for the Chamber of Commerce. So I do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then right now she is, before her current job, she was also with the Planning Commission for the city of Hemet. And that was it's a very important job, and they don't give that job edge to anybody. And right now she is the business development officer for Legacy Bank. It's a new bank in the valley that's supported and started by this Saboba band of Luceno Indians.
Yes.
And that's very exciting in that valley. And I've got a lot of listen. I wrote these questions down because I didn't want to mess it up. I want to get it right. And so if I sound like I'm reading it, it's because I am. Okay, make sure I get this right. Again, we'll start right away. Again, Cindy, thank you for coming, and I hope you're doing well.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. As we prepare for this discussion, I want you to know that I keep in mind when we wrote the book. Again, I knew that people didn't know much about buying cars, especially our youth, young people, and it's not something that a lot of that we teach in school.
Right.
You know, and I see a lot of mistakes that were made in car purchases. That if somebody sat down and told them, I found myself being Uncle Richard and say, look, you really don't need this car. Here's what you need to do. And I do know that when I get young people that they get their first job, they've been on the job for 90 days. Now all of a sudden they want the new Corvette.
Right.
And it's not always the right thing to do, with the cost of insurance and things like that. And then they don't always look, I find myself, is they don't look down the road. They only look what's within the next 30 days.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I can afford that, but there's other hidden costs. So I've got to have some questions for you. I do know that with our lenders, when they apply for loans, there's an internal scoring system. And there's like points for if they have a checking account, a savings account, and things like that. And so I do encourage people to, hey, open a checking account, And in fact, I happen to know somebody at Legacy Bank that could probably help them with that. But if I can get right to these questions,
absolutely.
Cindy, that'd be all right? Okay.
Yeah.
So number one is, I do know, again, in this show, we're calling it autonomics.
I love that. That's really catchy.
Okay. All right. And it's a critical intersection of the automotive economics. Also, I want to put it with youth education and credit management. Mm-hmm. Sure. And then, first question, in our communities, and this has to do with community service. You've shown, I know, a deep commitment in serving our community. I've seen you at a lot of nonprofits, and thank you for that. But when you look at the current landscape, what do you see as the most pressuring unmet needs for young people in our local area today, Cindy?
Well, the first thing I do see is potential in our youth. I also see some gaps. Now, when kids graduate high school, they probably understand algebra. But what they don't understand are maybe loan rates or how to buy a car. And let's be honest, their first major purchase in life isn't going to be a mortgage, it's going to be a car. But what do we know about buying a car, especially as a younger individual? We need to think about what our credit looks like, and do they even know and understand what credit is? So it's important that they have a checking account, because hopefully they have a job. Because how are you going to pay for that car? What are you going to do how are you going to pay for gas? How are you going to pay for insurance? And how are you going to make sure that you don't miss a payment? Because this is your first purchase, right? You got to start somewhere. You're not going to start with that Corvette.
Right.
Right? So you start with getting a job so that you can build that credit. Maybe you get a cell phone and start with credit. Maybe you go to a credit union and get one of those debit cards that start with a debit card where you get your gas and you pay for your cell phone bill and they report it as credit, because there's programs at credit unions. There's so many options for you to start building credit that isn't creating debt. Research is everything. Knowledge is power. And we need to understand that maybe that $430 payment for you to get that first car, for your credit score, a 620 versus a 740, right, is going to make a difference in that 5-year payment. All of these numbers might not mean anything to you now, but research means everything. Knowledge is power. We're going to say that 500 times. We need you to learn about this major purchase that you're making as a young person, because we know that this is the beginning of all of these things that you're going to do. That first car is going to be, the beginning of what do you really want? That first car shouldn't be like the Corvette that you want. You got to start somewhere, right? Baby steps, as they say. Mm-hmm. So what are some things that, in addition to what I say, don't come in and get that Corvette? Where do you start? What would you say to a young person coming in who has a checking account, who has a little bit of credit? What are some things that you would say for them in that first?
Right. I would say keep it around $15,000, keep it affordable, and then definitely nothing more than 20% of your disposable income of that payment.
Yes.
You're preaching to the choir, which is wonderful, but now you know why I asked her to be my first guest. She's fantastic stuff. I got another one for you.
Yeah.
That's great. Again, I'm introducing autonomics, we call it, right? This is what we're going to call it on this show. But buying a first car is a major life stone, like you just said. Yet few people understand the structural mechanics of the auto loan. And how can we, you and I, as a community and as business leaders, effectively introduce financial literacy into their world before they sign on the dotted line? You already mentioned some of it, but this is more. What should they know about that contract?
Well, I think that knowing and understanding that there is going to be a contract, but if we take a step before that, understanding the budget, you made a really great point about 20% of their income, right? Mm-hmm. So did they stop and think about their budget? Are they paying rent? Hopefully they're thinking about the big picture. Are they paying rent? Are they helping with utilities? Are they thinking about insurance, their gas, budgeting is, you should be looking at your budget every month. You should be looking at your statement every month. Are there fees coming out that you're aware of? Is someone using your debit card? Is there anything fraudulent that might be happening? You should be aware of what's coming in and out of your statement every single month. You should be knowing what's happening with your money. I think that those are key topics to talk about all the time. Let's take the intimidation factor out of banking. Don't be afraid of banking. Don't be afraid of walking into the bank and talking to someone, because this is your money. You are in charge. You should never be afraid to ask questions about your money and your account, because we are here to serve. So there's never a dumb question. There's never a time that you should hesitate to ask about, what's happening with your money, but you should have a budget. You should know what you can afford. Right. So budgeting is a number one before you go in for that major purchase. You should know what you need to spend. So I think that that's very important.
On this cell phone that I have, all my banks are on this phone.
Yes.
I look at it every day. And what's neat about, for example, my personal checking, it has what my balance is, but also has in there what are the stuff that's going to be coming out in the next few days that I forgot about.
Yeah.
That have auto pays. So it tells me what I have available, not so much what's available right now, but what's really available, because I have stuff coming out in the future. So that's certainly neat. I mean, and having the ability to be able to transfer money from checking, from savings to checking to whatever, other accounts, is nice. You can do that with the click of a finger.
Yeah.
And the young people are good at their phones,
Yeah,
right?
they are. They are. And financial literacy is just that. It's talking about how to open an account. We were talking earlier about writing a check. And people think we don't need checks. We don't have to have checks. But when you go buy a car, if you have someone like Richard Perry who says, well, you can put $2,500 now and $2,500 in 2 weeks, but you got to leave me a check so I can cash that in 2 weeks. Do you know how to write a check?
That's
You
right.
know, you need to know how to write a check and maybe get a temporary check, because maybe you don't have a full-on checkbook, but you can get temporary checks from your
Right.
bank, but you best be knowing how to write a check.
I did.
You know?
I had a young person that said, hey, I got the check, but I've never filled one out.
Sure. So, but I don't want you to be afraid to call me as a business development officer and say, I need to go buy a car. I need you to sit with me and show me how to write a check. I would be happy to sit with you.
Did you hear that?
I would be happy to sit with you and show you how to write a check.
Yeah.
Financial literacy is about taking the intimidation factor away from showing you how to open an account, how to write a check, how to sit with you and show you how to do your budget. I'm not going to do your budget for you, but I'm going to show you what it looks like and how you can fill it out. This is your money and this is your job, but I'm going to give you the tools to get it done. So I think that that's really important.
Hey, another question here.
Yeah.
On the mechanics of credit, many young people don't realize how a single auto loan can dictate their financial health for years. How do you best explain a long-term impact of credit scores, interest rates, and a debt-to-income ratio to someone who is only focused on the monthly payment? You kind of alluded that
we did.
earlier,
Yeah.
but again, more on that.
Yeah, well, that is something we talked about, and that's kind of where the score comes in, right?
Right.
So if you have a lower score, they're going to give you maybe a higher interest rate.
That's right.
And maybe you say, well, I can only pay X amount of dollars. We'll say $450. And maybe they can make that happen, but it's going to be over a way longer time than if you had a higher credit score at that same rate for a much shorter time.
Or to require more money down.
Exactly.
Yeah, that'd make the difference, yeah.
So there's so many factors where, yeah, they can make it happen, but is it in the best? What is the word? Is it going to be the best rate? Debt
to ratio.
Yes,
Sure.
for the long run. When
Yeah.
you go to rent that house, or when you want to buy a bigger house, or when you want to buy something else, it's not going to work because your
Right.
money's tied up. You know, so pay your bills on time, you know, and we didn't even get into a savings account, reserves account, if you will.
Yeah.
You know, when something happens, you lose your job, you get hurt, something happens, you know, so you have to be planning ahead for all of these things.
Developing good habits, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, and let's not even get into credit cards. If you don't have money now, you don't have money for that.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
You know, my credit cards actually pay me. So when I use a credit card,
You have to be a
I like
grown
to
up
charge
for
it
that.
because I want to get my points back, the
But you
2%
have to have the
back.
credit to earn that.
That's right.
And we got to earn our way up to that.
And when it comes right, but every December, Christmas time, I cash those in. And Bambi loves those gift cards. At
Definitely takes time to get to that point.
December. I got another one. You're doing great. You're batting 1,000. I got to tell you.
We tend to digress a little bit when I'm on the mic, so I thanks for keeping me on track.
Okay, if we're here to build a scalable education framework, okay, or workshop series around these principles that we've talked about, how can we leverage local community networks to ensure it reaches the young people who need this knowledge the very most?
And that can be an easy answer because I think that there's schools we can work with, there's nonprofits we can work with, parent choice alternatives we can work with, there's community groups we can work with, and there's other advocates that we can work with, but we can also collaborate with other, you know, VIP autos. We can work with other places. Legacy Bank has financial literacy programs, and other banks actually do a great job with that. Okay. And we can kind of rotate because there's a lot of wonderful organizations that give back with sharing really great information, resources, and sharing the wealth of knowledge to help people get better at this adulting thing that is so hard.
Sure.
You know, for all of us, you know, I'm 53 years old, and sometimes I still have to start over and figure things out. It's not easy all the time.
Sure. We learn
You
every
know,
day.
so yeah, we do. And that's part of adulting. You know, it's
Yeah.
not going to be easy all the time, and that's okay. We wipe ourselves off and we get back up and we do it again. So it's not going to be easy, but you can do it. And there's resources everywhere.
You know, Cindy, one of my clients was a high school teacher, actually from Hemet High. And a few years back, he invited me, asked me if I would talk to his class. He did home economics class. I forget what it was, something similar to that.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted me to talk about credit. So I brought out a credit report, you know, a good one, a bad one, and blacked out the information and talked about
You
what
didn't
it
bring
took to
mine,
get credit.
did you? Did you bring mine?
Yeah, yours is good. Yours is good. So what I'm saying is we shared that up there, and what's interesting is I was surprised the kids weren't bored.
Oh, yeah.
They were asking questions and you know, and some people, my mom's credit's horrible. Okay, well, I was like, wow, they are so true.
Yeah.
No, but what I'm saying is they're truthful.
Yeah,
They do, and they really just want the information.
they do.
And we just, you know, just put them on the right track.
Well,
And,
the other thing is that in a lot of homes, we don't talk about those things, right? Because when we were growing up, maybe we didn't talk about those things, or we're scared to talk about those things. We have to move forward. We have to break that cycle, get that information, and prepare for the future, whether it's
Sure.
tomorrow, a year from now, or 5 years from now. Let's get prepared for what we want so that we can be prepared to buy what we need and what we want. Whether it's a vacation, a better car, a reserve account, a Christmas account, whatever it is. You know, let's get prepared and let's do it.
Cindy, you killed it.
Thank
you so much for being the
Yeah.
first guest here at
I appreciate it.
Autonomics. So, guys, stay tuned. There's some more good stuff coming. I don't know if it's going to be any better than this, but we'll do the best we
Well,
can.
I want to thank you for putting this out there, because these conversations need to be had. The kids and adults, our community needs this information. So I appreciate you taking the time to create this platform. The community appreciates you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Richard.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. So see you next time on Autonomics. And also from the book, How to Buy a Car Without Being Taken for a Ride. What's right here? I know this guy. All right. See you then. Thank you.